The worst part about dinner is not cooking. It's not shopping. It's not even cleaning up. It's deciding what to make. If you feel the same as me and my mother, who was the first person who told me that, if you feel that way, you are going to love the vegan family meal plans. I suggest you pause this video right here and you follow the link below to download a sample of the vegan family meal plans that you can download from my website. Once you've got it, print it out and come right back because I'm going to give you a tour of everything that is in this meal plan. Just hit pause. The vegan meal plans exist because deciding what's for dinner, yeah, it's annoying, but it's also one of the most important decisions, perhaps the most important decision that we make every single day. And because I had to make those decisions for myself, I decided to just share with others and create this product that's been running now since 2017. If you're going plant-based for health reasons, you have probably figured out already that there's a lot more going on than just substituting plant protein instead of the old animal-based protein foods. That possibly means that you are now caring a lot more about nutrition than you did in the past. You care more about preparing, cooking healthy food for yourself and your loved ones, the kind of food that will give you and others more energy and prevent disease and all those beautiful things. But it can also be very overwhelming to consider all of this new information at the same time as you're just trying to, put dinner on the table. There's just so many considerations to juggle all at the same time. And I'm going to share with you what it is that comes through my mind when I'm planning dinner and how I created the meal plans for this reason. First of all, I want the meals to be nutritious. They need to be good for myself. I'm a woman in her mid-40s, and I also have 2 kids that are still very much growing and an athletic husband that I also feed with those dinners. So I want everybody to get the energy, to get the nutrients, to get everything they need to show up in the world and have a good day. I also prefer to avoid processed foods. I'm not completely swearing them off out of my kitchen entirely. We do consume vegan meats on occasion. However, I prefer to avoid the unnecessary sodium that comes in those meals. I just prefer beans the way they are. And also, it's kind of silly, but I really dislike the packaging, all the waste. So I'd rather cook my own meals from scratch as much as possible. Something else to keep in mind is that slimy greens and slightly rotten eggplants, I just hate that. I very much dislike food waste. It makes me feel angry. So I want to avoid food waste, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm meal planning. I am completely acknowledging that cooking is really important. It is, as I was saying, what our lives depend on in so many ways. But I don't exactly want to be spending my whole life doing it. So I want this balanced approach where, yes, I will show up in the kitchen to prepare this really good food, but no, I'm not going to be spending hours every single day to get the meals prepared. I want an approach that is a bit more efficient, that creates simple, tasty, delicious meals without necessarily extra work. Another consideration for me and for my family is that we're just pretty busy and things change often from one night to the next. And there are evenings where, yeah, it's pretty laid back and I can spend, comfortably half an hour in the kitchen before dinner time to pull a meal together. And there's other evenings when I'm running from a work meeting to a kid activity drop off to another meeting in the evening. And really 10 minutes is all I've got to bring dinner to the table to be ready to eat. So I need this balanced approach, again, that allows for meals on the spectrum, meals that are really hands-off, that I can almost just pull out and reheat and eat. And it's okay for me to have some meals that are a little bit more work. But again, on weeknights, I don't want to be endlessly chopping a bunch of different vegetables and looking up recipes and doing complicated things. It has to be very efficient also on weeknights. Last but not least, I want the meals to taste good. I want to enjoy eating them. And I want everyone in my family, maybe not all at the same time, I'm not asking that much, but I want most people on any given night to feel like it's an enjoyable dinner. When I started planning meals, 100% vegan for myself and my family. That was in 2015. I was quite overwhelmed. I put a lot of effort into the task. And over time, I got quite good at it. I developed a system that worked out, that streamlined the process, and that not only streamlined the process of meal planning, but also streamlined the process of cooking. And that is how I decided to create this into a product that I could share with other people. And that is what I'm going to talk with you about. And I'm going to share this example, the sample plan, the vegan family meal plan. There are also mini plans that are meant for people that cook for 1 or 2 persons, but the family plans is what this video is all about. I started creating those meal plans in 2017, and I have been improving them ever since, although in 2024 is really when they kind of reached their pretty much final form after 7 years of development. So what are the vegan family meal plans? Well, it is a collection of 52 weeks worth, actually 53, I'll get back to that at the end, 52 weeks worth of healthy vegan dinners that you can cook for yourself and your loved ones. And depending on the size of your family and how big the appetites are, you may also get meals for lunches, but overall it's planning for those 5 dinners per week. Every meal plan covers 2 weeks worth of dinners, Monday to Friday, so 10 dinners total. And we can say in this video, I'm going to talk about week A and week B based on the sample plan that you can download. The plans are pretty much what we'd call whole foods, plant-based, meaning that all the ingredients are based on whole foods, very minimally transformed. There are some exceptions where I suggest, for example, using pasta. That's a mechanically minimally processed food. I'm not too worried about that. Things like soy sauce and vinegars, but globally, the meal plans are reflecting a whole foods plant-based way of eating. Added oil, salt, and sugar are always optional, except maybe like twice in the year where I say, you know, if you do this recipe without a tablespoon of oil, it's not going to be quite the same, or maybe you want to substitute with something else. But overall, the course of the whole year, it's not necessary to add oil, sugar, and salt to any of the recipes. That will always be up to you. I'm going to show you the sample meal plans content. We're going to go page by page so you can become really familiar with it. And watching this video will save you time when it comes time to actually using the meal plan, because it will answer a lot of questions and anticipate some of the mistakes that you might make if you haven't taken the time to go through the whole thing with somebody explaining to you why different sections are where they are and what's in them. Let's start, it's pretty basic, with the cover page here. And at the top, there's the menu for the 2 weeks divided between week A and week B, or week 5 and week 6, for example, if it's January, February. And there's the list of dinners, so you get a feel for what's coming up. In this case, gado bowl, peanut and chickpea stew, spaghetti bolognese, which is one of my favorite, made with winter vegetables. I love this, and lots of other things here. And I also include on the cover page the distinction between the mealtime tasks and the items that will have been prepared in advance during a batch cooking session. So at a glance, you already have a feel for how your time is going to be divided and how dinner will come on the table on those different nights. And then there are these icons here on the side that have some explanations about the meals for the week for specific cases. For example, at the top, there's always some important reminders. And then there's a section where I talk about how one can adjust the meals to help picky eaters, highly selective eaters, expand their palate and their list of green light foods that they will eat. There is always a little note with the drop of oil there about oil use in the recipes and whether or not it's absolutely necessary. As I said, very occasionally is it preferable to use oil, but in general, you can always skip pretty much 98% of the time. The following section is about those avoiding gluten. So naming the gluten-free substitutions and alternatives that are recommended. Nut allergies. I am taking into consideration that many families are dealing with nut allergies, or if you're planning to send leftovers to schools, many schools have prohibitions against bringing nuts. And so that section will help you prepare for a nut-free dinner experience. The chronometer there indicates what kinds of shortcuts you can make to just get dinner on the table faster. And the following section is all about substitutions. For example, in this case, I mentioned that almost any lightly steamed vegetable will be great in the gado-gado bowl. So if you don't find the vegetables that I name on the meal plan on any given week, you can almost always make a change, do a substitution. And by the way, and I'll get back to that later, but meal plan subscribers can always send me a text message using the WhatsApp app to ask me questions about substitutions if they're at the grocery store and they can't find an item, or if they dropped an ingredient in larger quantity than anticipated in a recipe, or if they run short. It doesn't matter. You can always text me and ask last-minute questions about cooking, and I'm always very happy to respond. Finally, there's a section on the front page helping out the people who are cooking for hungry T-Rexes, the famed construction workers and growing teenagers, how to increase the calories within a meal to make it more satisfying for those who need to eat more and that may feel that bunny food, as some people call vegan food, is not enough for them. Well, we've got them covered in the T-Rex section. The following 2 pages are the shopping list. In the Vegan Family Meal Plan, the shopping list is organized by the main sections of the store. For each ingredient listed in alphabetical order, there is the list of the recipes that ingredient is used for. And you will notice that many ingredients are used for more than one recipe. That's how I get to be more efficient and have fewer ingredients to deal with from a week-to-week basis. And they are also divided in quantities that you need to get in week A or week B. The assumption is that shopping is done 1 week at a time. So you would get all the ingredients for week A first, go through the week, and then at the end of the week, get the ingredients for week B. However, it's always possible to get the general groceries, spices and seasonings, the kinds of ingredients that are shelf stable and that you don't need to worry about freshness. For example, you could get all of those ingredients in one big shop and then just top up with produce as you go. And over the course of a year, as you go through the months with the meal plans, you're going to find out that many of the dry ingredients come back. I'm not very fond of so-called weird ingredients. There's variety, of course, but not so much that you will need to be running to the store all the time to top up your spices and seasonings, for example. I teach you to use different combinations to get different tastes, and you can use that base from one meal plan to the next. So the part that will always be more intensive is shopping for fresh vegetables. And I'm very mindful of seasonality, making sure that the vegetables that are in season at any given time of the year are featured in the meal plan prominently. By the way, if you're listening to this, but you're in Australia or New Zealand or anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere, you can just request to get the alternate season meal plan delivered to you in addition to the regular season. So for example, people in Australia, when they get the down under delivery of the meal plan, well, if it's week 1 and 2 in the Northern Hemisphere, they will be getting weeks 26 and 27, which are equivalent to our early July here in Canada, in the United States, and Europe, but they will be basically cooking the summer food while we're cooking the winter food. So that's always possible. Just request it if you subscribe. The next section you find in the printed meal plan is the day-to-day instructions by week. So let's take week A, for example. Here we have, on Monday, I've assigned a gado-gado. You will find that on the first couple days of the week, usually the dinners are more intensive with regards to chopping, or they have more fresh vegetables in them. The reason for that being that, assuming that you're doing your shopping on the weekend, then it's nicer to have those ingredients when they are at their peak freshness. Later in the week, in this case, Wednesday, Thursday, we find simmered dishes for which the freshness of the ingredients is less of a concern. Often the Friday dinner is either something people consider like fun food, for example, burgers, and I always provide recipes for homemade healthy vegan burgers. But if you're in a bind, once in a while, it's okay if you end up buying a ready-made burger. Nobody is going to call the WFPB police on you. Not me, anyway. But so when you're on the Friday, there's often something more like fun food and or a combination of leftovers from the building blocks that were used during that week. So again, you can see that balance between meals that are more intensive in terms of work with the fresh produce and meals that you just take out of the fridge and reheat because they were prepared in a batch cooking session on the weekend. I'm going to get back to the batch cooking session in just a moment. And finally, the last section of the printed meal plan is the very carefully crafted batch cooking session plan. In this case, for week A, the building blocks to prepare in advance are brown rice. Brown rice, I would never cook on a weeknight because it just takes too long and I'm too hungry. Roasted vegetables. Here it's roasted squash and beets. So I indicate what vegetables to roast in advance so it goes faster on weeknights. The baked tofu that will be used in the gado-gado. While the oven is on, it does not take much effort to also pop in some slices of marinated tofu. There is a simmered dish in this specific prep session, the tofu bolognese sauce. It is so delicious. It's my family's favorite. And whenever we host people, especially people who are not vegan, I love to make this because everybody loves a good old bolognese kind of sauce. And that dish is an example of a simmered dish that gains more flavor while it sits in the fridge. So it's made on the weekend during the batch cooking session, but it's not eaten until I think Wednesday or Thursday on this plan. So the flavors develop and they get better. And that's another benefit of doing the batch cooking on the weekend. What else is on this batch cooking plan? There's the peanut sauce that is used for the gado-gado that comes also during the batch cooking session. And at the end, there's always a little bit of a cheerful word to remind you that you're doing awesome if you're doing your batch cooking because your life on weeknights will be so much easier. And then, of course, there's a little prep session also for what we call B week in this case. And we see I'm roasting some beets again in case they were not prepared the previous week. Some black beans, a little salsa with chopped pineapple that is really amazing. Pizza dough made at home. If you don't want to bother with flour, that's fine. You can just buy the pizza dough, but here's the recipe and it's really a lot easier than you think. And finally, a cashew-based sour cream. So what's a typical or an ideal way to use the meal plans? My personal approach is that on Fridays after dinner, I will look at what is on the meal plan for the coming week. At the same time, very important as I look at what's on my schedule and I make sure to reconcile the two. Sometimes I will change a recipe that I'm supposed to have on, let's say, Wednesday. I might move it to Tuesday or to Friday or whatnot, because those are nights where I'm busy and I'd rather have a simpler dinner, for example. And if there's a night where I have more time, then I will move a meal that involves more prep to that night. So that can be done. It's not a problem. And so Friday night, I look at what's coming up. I also look at what I have in the fridge, if there's any leftovers that need to be frozen or that can be eaten on the weekend, or that I will want to build into next week's meals as a side, something like that. And I take down the items from the shopping list into the app on my phone that I take to the store. If you like to do your grocery shopping online, well, I guess Friday night is a good time to order your groceries. Personally, I still would prefer to go to the store. I try to do that on Saturday morning, and especially going to the farmer's market is really my preference. I love going to the farmer's market and seeing all the amazing vegetables, and I will often make last-minute changes to my meal plans. I will not necessarily change the recipe proper that I want to follow, but I will substitute some of the vegetables because I've just found something that looks exciting at the farmer's market, and I will use that instead. So that's Saturday morning. And then I do personally the batch cooking Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. It depends on when cooking club is held. At the moment, we're meeting mostly at Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's when I do my batch cooking. I could do, I suppose, batch cooking on the same day I get groceries, but it would just be too much for me. I'd rather stretch it out into smaller bites. And as I mentioned, you can always send me a text message, whether you're preparing your shopping list or you're at the store or you're in the process of cooking and you have a question, you're not sure what to do, you think you made a mistake, which you probably didn't exactly, but I will convince you that it's okay the way you did it and we can fix this, that's fine. So just send me a text message with WhatsApp. All of the subscribers have access to this. Another perk of being a subscriber is that you can book a mini coaching call for free with me at the beginning, where we talk about adjusting the meal plans to your needs and making it work. The chief benefit, of course, of being a meal plan subscriber is that the decisions are made for you. And they're made with a lot of love and a lot of care. And I really want you to eat really good food because I want you to show up in the world and do your thing and be the best you can be. And I also don't want you or me to be spending too much time in the kitchen. So you will find that the recipes are cleverly and carefully coordinated to save you time. And over the course of the many years during which I was refining the meal plans every year, sometimes I would look at a batch cooking session and think, that's too much. I can't ask them to do this. And I would either change the recipe or change the order of the steps and move some of the steps to another time, or just do away entirely with a given recipe and do something else, because it made the cooking process more sustainable. Because if it's too much work, you're not going to stick with it. And I don't like that. I really want this to be a lifestyle that is sustainable for you, that can work for many, 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 many years, for the tens of thousands of meals that you're going to cook again in the future. The recipes were also chosen to work together. I don't have 7 different kinds of grains used on a given 2-week set. There's always an attention to reducing the number of ingredients while having as much variety as possible with that set of ingredients. And even sometimes you might be using half a can of white beans here and the other half of white beans in another recipe that I'm making, that I'm suggesting that you make a little bit lower down in the meal plan. So things have been crafted to work together. Typically, there's 2 types of beans per week, but the following week, they will be different. And so you get that diversity that is really good for us and for our gut microbiome without adding too much extra work all the time. So the important thing is to shift the ingredients, especially as the seasons go, so that we can enjoy optimally fresh and vegetables that are at their peak flavor and nutrition, and move on from one week to the next. You can really think of the building blocks that I suggest making in the batch cooking session kind of the same way you might think about processed food items that you would buy ready-made at the store. For example, a tomato sauce that you would buy at the store. I don't want to diss it. It's fine to use tomato sauce from the store when we're in a bind, but personally, I don't want to be using store-bought tomato sauce all the time because it tends to have a lot of sugar added. And when I cook my own, I usually sneak in lentils, for example, or find ways to make it more nutritious. And that is what I do with all the building blocks, is that I make sure that they pack as much nutrition and flavor as possible within the limited time that we all have available for prep. This is all a compromise, and this is where my compromise sits. There are other meal plan services out there that you can subscribe to that require more work. And maybe there's some that require less work. I'm not sure about that. I haven't encountered them yet, but maybe. But it's all a balance and a compromise. And this is what fits in my life right now and that of many hundreds of subscribers who prefer to do a little bit of batch cooking on the weekend, to enjoy streamlined weeknights, put in the effort because they think cooking is important, but at the same time, not spending hours every day cooking. Another benefit of the meal plan is that if you follow them over the course of a year, it's really kind of like following a 1-year cooking class, because every dinner is an opportunity to learn. And you will notice that many of the forms come back from one season to the next. Something like that bolognese sauce that I was raving about a few minutes ago. Well, it comes back more or less every 3 months, but using different vegetables because different vegetables are in season. But I'm not reinventing how to make bolognese sauce every time. Maybe I change the way to add the protein-dense food in it. Sometimes it's tofu, sometimes it's lentils. But from one time to the next, you're learning. And after the course of a whole year, you will probably, as I've done for the past 7 years now, want to reuse the meal plans again next year, because the recipes don't keep on coming. It's that one set of 53 weeks worth of meal plans that you continue using. But then the next time the recipes come around, you're like, oh yeah, I know what to do. I don't need to look at this. It's nice to have someone made the decision of what's for dinner, and now you just need to execute. And you may be looking at the list of ingredients to refresh your memory, but you don't need to carefully pay a lot of attention. And that's the thing about cooking, is that it's not just this month or this year that we have to cook dinner. It's a task that's part of the maintenance phase that we have to continue doing for the rest of our lives. And I don't say that in a negative way. That's wonderful, because we have so many opportunities to continue practicing and to continue exploring, but also it gets easier over time with actual practice and paying attention. And that's what's cool about the meal plans, is that it's like doing a one-year cooking course without having to study separately or do separate homework and assignments. It's just the normal food that you have to cook for dinner. One last little thing, the week 53 bonus. I discovered some years ago that there are years that have 53 weeks. It's just the way it's worked out, mathematically speaking. I always thought it was 52 weeks, but turns out there's years that have 53 weeks. And the year that happened, I was completely unprepared. And I realized it was a good opportunity to create an easy meal plan with recipes that can be prepared really quickly, dinners that can be pulled together with pantry ingredients and kind of standard vegetables that I would expect anybody on the meal plan to have. So when they haven't, prepared anything, they haven't planned, they haven't batched, they can look at week 53 meal plan and find one of the 10 recipes that's in there to make dinner happen quickly with just really basic ingredients. And they're some of my family's favorites that we do have a few times a month, I would say, for some of them. And it's just a nice bonus to have, that you don't always have to follow the meal plan to a T. You can also use week 53 once in a while to patch in the gaps. Also, I should add that, as I said, the meal plans cover Monday to Friday. Usually there's leftovers that can be brought together into what I call a dinner of bits and bobs for one of the days on the weekend. Or you can decide to follow a recipe that's a little bit more complex when you have more time. If you do enjoy spending a little extra time in the kitchen, go get a recipe from one of the many cookbooks that I'm sure you have, and use that recipe, learn a new skill, and use that skill again in your future cooking tasks. So that's it for the tour of the Vegan Family Meal Plan. I hope this was helpful. I strongly encourage you, if you haven't done it already, to go and download your free sample. It is a really useful tool, even if you're not ever interested in subscribing, to see how a meal plan can be crafted and designed to all work together. But if you decide it's too much work, you can also, of course, sign up, and you will get 25% off if you use the coupon code YouTube. Just go to the link in the comments below, and feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. You can comment below, or you can always email me at hello@veganfamilykitchen.com. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the Vegan Family Kitchen.